Imagine waking up and a country's entire foreign policy has been flipped on its head. We're talking about a massive overnight shift from just sitting back with passive deterrence to stepping up with proactive elimination. This isn't just a simple timeline of events we're looking at today. It's a deep dive into a historic paradigm shift that completely rewrote global security protocols. So, what actually triggers a nation to abandon decades of strategic patience in a matter of hours? In this explainer, we're going to dive right into the real-world catalyst that sparked this massive geopolitical transformation. Like, how does a localized tragedy suddenly snowball into an international diplomatic event? To really get a firm grip on this, we'll walk through these 6 key areas. We'll start with the Pahalgam trigger, analyze the high-tech precision of Operation Sindoor, map out the intense 5 days of escalation, and review the diplomatic offensive that followed. Finally, we'll look at the broader strategic impact and do a quick revision to lock it all in. All right, first up, the trigger, the Pahalgam attack. Because before we can talk about the military response, we really have to understand the why behind it. On April 22, 2025, the Pahalgam terror attack tragically claimed 26 lives, including 1 citizen from Nepal. And this wasn't just another incident you read about and forget. It completely shattered the status quo. The public outcry and the immediate national security threat meant that sending a standard, strongly worded diplomatic letter just wasn't going to cut it anymore. Now, this is really fascinating. Look at the quote on the screen. Usually, military operations get these super aggressive names to project raw power, right? But not this time. Operation Sindoor was chosen specifically as a deeply personal tribute to the victims, especially the widows of the attack. It established this incredibly focused, emotional tone right from the get-go. It wasn't about chest puffing, it was about strict, precise accountability. Which brings us to part 2, Operation Sindoor and the precision strikes themselves. We are looking at the most extensive cross-border military action by India since the Balakot strikes back in 2019. Think of the technology they used here like a highly specialized toolkit. Modern warfare isn't about carpet bombing. It's all about surgical precision. You've got the Scalp long-range cruise missiles for punching through deep fortified targets, then the Hammer precision-guided bombs for hitting dynamic moving targets, and my personal favorite, the kamikaze drones, or loitering munitions. These things can literally loiter in the air, gather real-time intelligence, and make autonomous decisions over enemy territory. It's an absolutely massive leap in tactical flexibility. So on May 7, 2025, you had this flawlessly coordinated tri-service effort, Army, Navy, and Air Force working in total sync. They targeted these 9 specific terror infrastructures across Pakistan and Pak. We're talking major logistical hubs, like the GEM headquarters in Bahawalpur and the LET facility in Meerut. The objective? Absolute precision to dismantle the networks with virtually zero collateral damage. And crucially, right after they hit these targets, India immediately drew a line and announced their goals were met and they weren't looking to escalate further. But of course, part 3, 5 days of escalation. Because in geopolitics, striking the target is really just the opening move. The massive chain reaction that followed is what we need to unpack next. Just look at how fast this spiraled over 5 incredibly intense days. On May 8th, Pakistan retaliates with fighter jets, which India intercepts using S-400 systems. By May 9th, it evolves into a massive drone war, and India takes out air defense radars in Lahore. By the 10th, heavy tanks are rolling out and Pakistan is calling for a ceasefire. And literally 24 hours later, the UN Security Council is in an emergency session with the US urging restraint. It's a perfect example of how a regional clash instantly becomes a global government's headache. To truly grasp the sheer scale of the escalation, just look at this number, 300 to 400. That is how many drones and missiles Pakistan launched in a massive offensive on the night of May 8th. They targeted 36 different Indian locations, stretching all the way from Leh to Sur Creek. But here's the amazing technological impact. Indian air defense systems managed to successfully neutralize that entire swarm across a huge geographic area. Meanwhile, the hidden strategic layer was happening right on the ground. While the skies were an absolute chaotic mess, India quietly deployed T-72 main battle tanks, equipped with massive 125mm guns, along the line of control in the Akhnor sector. This was a classic containment strategy to lock down the borders, stop infiltrators, and keep the conflict from turning into unpredictable ground skirmishes. All right, Moving to part 4, the diplomatic offensive. Because modern wars aren't just fought with weapons, they are fought fiercely in embassy halls and on the global stage. Usually, after a strike like this, a country might just bunker down and wait for the international backlash. Not here. India launched a totally unprecedented diplomatic offensive, sending 7 all-party delegations out to 33 different countries. They wanted to aggressively control the narrative before anyone else could weaponize it against them. And it was a highly systemic effort. You had 51 political leaders and 8 former ambassadors traveling the globe as a completely unified front. You had Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu immediately backing the right to self-defense. The US and the UN urged restraint, sure, but they also pointedly acknowledged the core issue of cross-border terrorism. And on a purely practical level, this massive diplomatic muscle allowed India to successfully negotiate the rescue of 500 stranded citizens out of Turkey, right in the middle of all this soaring regional tension. So, part 5, strategic shift and impact. What is the overarching legacy here that goes beyond just a 5-day conflict? It really all boils down to this fundamental shift. For decades, the old rulebook relied on reactive deterrence, basically waiting for an attack to happen and then just defending your own borders. But Operation Sindoor permanently shifted the posture to proactive engagement. This means directly and preemptively targeting militant infrastructure and then aggressively shaping the global narrative. It completely challenges traditional deterrence models and sets a bold new precedent for how state-sponsored terrorism is handled globally. Finally, part 6, concept mastery and revision. Let's do a quick recap to make sure all these concepts are locked into your memory. Here are your top 5 must-remember takeaways. 1. The catalyst was the devastating April 22nd Pahalgam attack. 2. The response was Operation Sindoor, using high-tech Sculp and kamikaze drones for surgical precision. 3. The escalation was a wild 5-day exchange tightly managed by S-400 defense systems. 4. That massive diplomatic outreach to 33 nations unified the domestic front and rewrote the global narrative. And 5. The ultimate impact was transitioning foreign policy permanently from reactive defense to proactive deterrence. I'm going to leave you with this final analytical question to chew on. Now that this bold precedent of proactive precision strikes has been set and successfully defended diplomatically on the world stage, how is this going to permanently alter deterrence models in future regional conflicts? The strategic ripple effects of Operation Sindoor are absolutely going to shape global geopolitics for decades to come. Keep that framework in mind the next time you see international security news breaking.